All right, with that, let's shift our focus and get you some breaking news that's coming in. Right, that's the big breaking news that's coming in at the moment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has received a phone call from the American President Donald Trump. The Indian Prime Minister has now released a statement on his X handle that says, and I quote, "We reviewed the substantial progress achieved in our bilateral cooperation in various sectors. We are committed to further strengthening our comprehensive global strategic partnership in all areas." We also discussed the situation in West Asia and stressed on the importance of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open and secure. Remember, this is the third phone call between the two leaders this year and the second one since the US and Israel launched their war against Iran. Two very important takeaways from this phone call, 40-minute duration of this phone call that happened between the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and the American President, Donald Trump. One is, of course, the stress on having the Strait of Hormuz open and secure. And the second one, of course, is the strategic partnership between the two countries. Let me quickly go across to my colleague Siddhant Sibbal, our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, joining us with more details. Siddhant, get us more details. One, of course, is the emphasis on the Strait of Hormuz being open and secure. The other one being the India-US bilateral relationship.
Well, a significant conversation between the two leaders. Now, this is the third conversation between the two leaders this year after the conversation that happened when the trade understanding was announced and then after the conflict started. Now, essentially, Hormuz is going to dominate the issue given the fact that how it is impacting the global fuel prices and supply chain, but also on the India-US relationship. Now, remember that the Indian Prime Minister travels to France in the month of June for the G7 summit, and the American President is expected to be there as well. And it is expected that both leaders can have their first bilateral there in months, given the fact that the last time they in person met was in February of 2024. Now, also on the table is a focus on not only the issues of trade, but also the issue of cross-borderism that, of course, is a concern for India. We have seen increased closeness between US President Donald Trump and the Pakistani leadership. And that, of course, will be a cause of anxiety here in New Delhi. So several areas of conversations between the two leaders, but above all, the focus on how to give a direction to the India-US relationship,
yes,
which obviously doesn't look very in positive direction.
All right, Siddhant, thanks very much for joining us with those details. Of course, the Prime Minister of India now receiving that phone call from the American President. Lots and lots of, details of their phone call being emphasized upon, being stressed upon, and being focused upon the India-US relationship. My colleague Susan Teherani is also joining us live from New York. Susan, the American President has called the Indian Prime Minister. Are you getting more details of why this outreach was made by America?
I think we can really get an understanding from Prime Minister Modi's post on X, and I'm sure that we'll hear from President Trump shortly as well. What stands out in the Prime Minister's statement is the emphasis on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open and secure, because it's a critical signal that nearly a fifth of the world's oil flows through that waterway, for one thing, and for India, which relies heavily on energy imports from the Gulf, any disruption would have immediate economic consequences. So what this call really shows is that the Iran conflict has really moved beyond a regional crisis, and major powers like the United States and India are now coordinating possibly to prevent a global energy shock and to ensure that shipping lanes remain open. So I won't be surprised if we hear more about that from the U.S. President and possibly Prime Minister Modi as well in the next coming hours.
All right, Susan, thanks very much for joining us at the moment. Of course, we'll wait and see when the U.S. President does post about this phone call. He always does make it a point to make sure that that communication does happen from his online post. But at the moment, of course, the Indian Prime Minister giving out details of the phone call that he received from the American President.